right. Hello and welcome to the Planned Communities podcast. I'm your host, Preston Martin. And today we have Kofi from Prabon Greenfields, which is a planned community in Ghana. Kofi, thank you for joining us today. We're really happy to have you and looking forward to learning more about your planned community and your role. First off, why don't you give us just a quick background on yourself and on Prabon Greenfields, and then we can dig into how is this project came about and what the day-to-day looks like. But first of all, welcome and yeah, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about you, Kofi, and how you came to this project.
Okay, Preston, thank you very much too for having me. My name is Kofi Ofori-Mensah, and I am the head of sales and marketing at Prabon Greenfields community, which is a gated, planned community in the Ashanti region of Ghana. So basically, what we do is we offer residential properties in a well-planned, gated community in the country. So that is what we do. And then I joined this project about 4 years ago as the head of sales and marketing. And my role basically is to sell what we have and to sell the vision of the community to interested, well-meaning Ghanaians and foreigners who want such a residential facility to live at. So that is what I do. And then that is something, a brief thing about myself.
Excellent. Well, I'd love to learn more about the vision that you described with respect to the types of homes and the types of amenities that your community offers. So can you give us a sense of if you will, paint a picture of Prabon Greenfields? What kind of community is it? Is it more on the higher end luxury side? Yeah, how would you describe kind of the basic setup of the community and the types of people that are a part of your kind of target audience, your target market?
So if you've ever taken a trip to Africa or you have been to Africa, one of the things you're going to realize is real estate in Africa is a big challenge for Africans. And then basically because the basic infrastructure that all good and proper real estate requires are not so much developed in most African countries. And this is actually a revenue issue because governments don't really have enough revenue to execute good roads, good drainages, and all those basic infrastructural setup. So living in Africa sometimes become very challenging. What my company does, or what Prabon Greenfields has done, is to provide all these basic infrastructure, very very good roads, clean potable water, a sewage treatment plant to treat the sewage, proper drainages, underground telecommunication and electricity supplies and all that. And then also we have tried to develop the community into a world-class, a world-standard community. So that is what sets us apart. And the vision is to provide Ghanaians with world-class, eco-friendly neighborhoods whereby they can compare what we have to any part of the world. So basically, that is what we have. And in Africa, basically, there are three types of development. We have the affordable housing development, the middle income housing development, and the high-end luxury development. But we fall within the category of the high-end luxury. So that is where we fall. So basically what we are offering residential units at the high-end section of the market.
Understood. Yeah, and as you described all of the amenities that are offered by Prabon Greenfields with the sewage treatment center specifically, but central water pumping, all of the other infrastructure for internet, for roads, for pretty much everything that one needs when it comes to a neighborhood that they live in. I can definitely say from my experience that or my experience in Africa rather, that not all of those things are often provided in a complete package. So what I'm curious about when I hear you go through and kind of paint the picture of that infrastructure, how much of that is managed by your company when it comes to like the daily operations of Prabon Greenfields, and how much of that is contracted out to other partners?
Okay, so when it comes to the community services, what we do is that we manage everything in-house. The construction of these basic infrastructure are subcontracted to the companies that have the expertise in terms of its construction. But when it comes to the day-to-day management, we have an in-house management team on standby to make sure everything functions. So things like the refuse disposal that we do subcontract to another company. With the sewage treatment, maintenance, and all that, we do all those in-house. The community landscaping is being done in-house. Road maintenance, that is also subcontracted. So there are some that we do subcontract, and then there are some that are being handled internally. But the difference with this model that we run here is that the government does not involve itself in anything aside electricity supply. So the government has a certain, supplies electricity to a certain point, and then we take the distribution from that point to what we have, to the community. So that is what the government does. In terms of water, we have an in-house team that manages water. We have an in-house team that manages the landscapes and all that. So the only thing government does is to supply electricity to a certain point, and then we tap into that to supply our residents.
It's fascinating. So you guys are basically operating your own town with respect to all of the infrastructure, all of the services that you provide, and I mean it's incredible how much of that is done in-house, compared to other plant communities that I've spoken to and have visited. In many cases, the management company is somewhat of a skeleton. They're not necessarily taking an active role in the day-to-day services or amenities for the homeowners. But in this case, I think you guys really have the full package of amenities that you maintain, and I think that makes a lot of sense with respect to the necessity of infrastructure and the role of government in being able to provide, or having to provide, things like the roads and electricity and water treatment and so on. So I think that on that note, it'd be interesting to get a sense of how this project got started, about the founding of Prabon Greenfields, and how this got into motion with the development. How old is the project, and can you speak to how it kind of got founded and built out from the first vision going forward?
So the project was commissioned in 2015, and the project began when, in Africa, we have great kings in Africa, and these are the traditional rulers.
Right.
And we in Ghana, we are blessed with one powerful king who happens to be the king of the Ashanti people. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is internationally recognized and all that. And he had a vision that the Ashanti region should have such a development so that the region can attract more of its indigents who have made it and are like living out there. So let's say you have some Ashantis who are very rich all over the world into various professions and all that. And then we needed those people back home so that these people can make certain contributions to the society. So the most logical thing to do by the King of Ashanti was to get a place and then make sure that particular community is up to the standard internationally so that we can attract all these successful people back home. So in order to execute that vision, the King of Ashanti, Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, he went to Israel and then did a partnership with the Vital Capital Fund of Israel. So the Vital Capital Fund of Israel came with the financial capital, and then the King of Ashanti provided the land and some local expertise for the project to come into fruition. The project itself over the years has generated lots of jobs locally, and we do employ typical locals to actually do the construction bit and all that. And this project has been a source of employment for most people because, real estate infrastructural development requires lots of manpower.
Yeah.
And lots of families have benefited directly from this job. Once the project is also done, completed, we would need more services. The community is going to employ more people and all that. So the vision is actually a win-win for all parties. Vital Capital is an impact fund, a capital fund in Israel, and their investments from Vital are supposed to have direct and significant impact in the lives of the ordinary people. So the project and its vision is a win-win for all parties involved.
That's fascinating. And you guys are still actively under development, right? You're still building homes.
Yes, we are doing it in phases. So currently we are at our Zone A South, and that is where we have the current development at. Very soon we'll be moving to the other zones. And the plan now is to have a more inclusive community because, you don't really want a community that has lots of the haves and you don't have some have-nots in there and all that. So we are trying to sort of socially integrate everybody into the community. So we might enter into some middle income housing and then some affordable housing units too, because we do have a lot of land. We have about 290 acres of land to develop. So we can then segment our land into various zones to accommodate other social classes and all that. So we are working on that too.
That's very interesting. So essentially you guys began targeting or trying to target the diaspora of the Ashanti spread out around the world to come back and live in Ghana in what you've described as primarily a luxury community. And now you're expanding that vision to include people from all social classes, middle income, lower income, and because you guys have the land and because you have the infrastructural capacity, you can do that. I think in a lot of cases in Africa but also around the world, those two issues, lack of land for whatever reason, whether it's regulatory or whether it's simply the space just doesn't exist where they are where they're based, they cannot expand. They're limited in terms of their expansion. And then, the infrastructure problem is obviously a huge one. So it seems like you guys have been able to address both of those, and I'm sure that they present their own unique challenges, of course.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could speak to some of the challenges you guys have faced in terms of that expansion, because it sounds like you've done quite well with the homes that you've built and all of the infrastructure you provide, and with the particular market that you're targeting. But give us a sense of some of the pain points, some of the challenges that you guys have had to overcome in order to get to your current level of development.
Okay, so fundamentally, getting the expertise locally to execute some of the things that we have here is a major challenge because most of the things we have or we have executed on the ground. We don't have people that have the local skills or expertise to execute them. So, of course, for you to do a sewage treatment plant for over 500 homes, then you will need to bring down some expatriates to like come to do the installation, the basic calculations and all that. And that actually increases the project cost, because in the end, somebody would have to pay for that particular STP or that particular sewage treatment plant. So that is a major challenge. I mean, getting the experts down to complete what we have to meet the standards that we want them to. So we have challenge of the expertise, and then also we have the exchange rates. People in Ghana make their monies in the local currency, which happens to be the cedi. Now, for you to be able to afford such properties, then you will need to sell in the USD. Okay, but the thing is that because they are making the monies locally, there is that exchange risk, a difference, whereby if no that exchange rate difference, whereby you will need about 8 cedis to get $1, meaning for you to get $1 locally, you would have to work 8 times what you would have done outside Ghana to get $1. So those are some of the challenges. And then also we trying to reach other social classes is to let the Ghanaians know how it feels to live in properly planned communities. Because if you have a lot of locals living their normal day-to-day lives and they have not experienced how a proper planned community life looks like, it becomes a challenge letting them experience how life in such communities are. So the more we expand, the more we reach out to more Ghanaians, we reach out to more people out there, then we are telling them in their subconscious that your life becomes better if you live in a planned community. And because people are not used to this culturally, okay, it really takes time for people to try to buy into that idea. So that is what we are trying to change, and all these come as challenges for us as developers.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think that you bring a lot of insight in terms of the description of those challenges, and obviously, they can be overcome, but in a sense they are also pervasive. I mean, I get a sense that with respect to the provision of infrastructure, right? There's only so much of a load that can be borne by, I imagine that there is a maximum to the number of people that a sewage treatment plant can support. The size of the community is kind of restricted in that sense, and that's just one example. The same could go for the roads. The same could go for the provision of electricity, and so on. So do you guys plan to expand and develop additional communities, or for now are you just focused on this particular community in Prabon Greenfields and continuing the development track that you're currently on?
Yes, we do have plans to expand to other places within not just the region, but outside too. I mean, outside where we are, the local jurisdiction. So that is what we intend doing. But most importantly, we want to we want to have a local impact here. We want the project to impact the local people positively. We want people locally to understand how it feels to live in a properly planned community. And then also, we want this to be a Ghanaian thing, because currently it is not. currently people are doing isolated construction on their own. They don't follow any plan. Some people don't have any permits and all that. But we want this to be part of the local culture so that individuals can also live well because, your community is directly linked to like how well your life is. So we just want to make sure that planned communities become a Ghanaian thing. That is what we want to do.
I think that's a very interesting point that you bring up. From my perspective, in the work that we do at Adrianople Group and in the field of economic development and special economic zones, there is quite a bit of talk and conversation, study of developing institutions and the importance of institutions and a country's development economically, culturally, etc. And what it sounds like you're describing is the fine tuning of an institution, or at least looking to existing institutions, possibly even creating additional ones around this idea of planning the development of communities and the infrastructure that are needed to support them. So, on that note, what kind of support does your project get from existing institutions in Ghana? For example, how does the relationship with the government work, and has that aided the development of the project, or has that presented some challenges? I'm curious to know to what degree you guys are supported kind of by the wider network of institutions in Ghana.
Okay. So because development is internationally funded, it becomes an FDI, which is a foreign direct investment into the country. The challenge that we have is that basically such investments come or should come with some tax exemptions. Okay. But in our case, getting those tax exemptions is currently a challenge. We are still talking to the government to give us those tax exemptions, but we don't have them yet. And then we hoped to get them soon. Another support too that we have to, or most of the supports that we are getting currently is actually support coming from the King of Ashanti, His Majesty Otumfuo Osei Tutu II. He has been the backbone of this project, and he's been the one traditional figure who actually opened doors for us and to make sure that things work or to make sure things actually work well for us. So basically, other than that, in Africa, because of the lack of revenue in form of taxes that we generate locally, the government is always under-resourced. So sometimes I do understand them. It's not really that they don't want to support, but it's the issue of the availability of the funding. The government usually doesn't have money. So, so far, that is the general reality that we have.
Right. So where they're not able to contribute financially, say, to the maintenance of roads or the development of energy generation and so on, they are able to on like the regulatory side and the permits and licenses and so on.
Exactly.
It appears that they have been very supportive.
Yes. I mean, in those sites, yes. Yes, in those sites, yes. But in anything that requires lots of funding from the central government,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a challenge. But
Definitely.
gradually we are working together to change things. So things are going to improve.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, I think that, in my opinion, right, I think that these types of projects are highly necessary. They may not sound, grand and they may not be huge, massive projects with tremendous amounts of funding, but they're making a practical difference, and they're providing good infrastructure and good amenities for people who are looking for them and who need them for their life. They want to raise a family, they want to live in a good neighborhood, and these are the types of things that form the bedrock of a community. So I think that
And most importantly, it's the exposure. You know, these communities are exposing the local people to what properly planned communities look like. And
right.
issue is that you need them for the people to experience them. So that is the example that we are not just to the region, but to the entire country, that it can be done and it can be done well.
Absolutely. Well, that is, I think, I think that's a very interesting aspect of your project, and it's one that, say, for our the other guests that we have brought on, speaking with plant communities in North America, right? They benefit from a lot of those infrastructural cornerstones already being guaranteed and already being kind of held as a given, you know, in most cities, say in the United States, for example. But you guys are paving the way, not only for the people who live in the community, but also to serve, as you said, as an example for the rest of Ghana. And that is one of the reasons why we are particularly interested in speaking with plant communities in African countries, because in many ways they're almost like building new cities and towns from the ground up, you know, at a small level, but addressing all of those essential, you know, basics and having to think kind of from the ground up about how to run a community. So that leads me to another question, which is from the perspective of the homeowner, this perspective of the resident, how are they interacting with you as the management company, say for paying fees, for receiving and giving like notifications? You know, how do they interact with you guys on a daily basis as a resident?
Okay, so the residents have to pay some service charges monthly, and these service charges, because they know what life outside a plant, a community looks like or is, and they have that understanding. 99.9% of all our residents pay on time. They understand that they need to pay for their security, they need to pay for their water, they need to pay for their electricities and all that. So we have a very fantastic relationship with our residents or with our buyers. And the most important thing to them is that in the end, the value of their properties should be well kept or should be well maintained, because they don't want the community to deteriorate and then they losing value in terms of their investment. So what we do at our end is that before we have any buyer coming in, we do an initiation process where we explain to you why we do some of these things. And then because we are very practical with them, and then they come in from the society, they understand, and it makes our work done. Like it actually takes care of a majority of our future works for us. So that is what we do with them.
Okay, that makes sense. And do you have an online portal, or can they go in through your website in order to do things like
Yes.
paying fees and so on?
So with the payment of fees, we do that through our local bank. So we'll give all the local bank details to them. And then once the payments are being made, they issue us an advice and then indicates that they have made certain amounts towards their mortgages or towards their service charges and all that. So we work directly with the local banks, and they have that financial setup and to inform us and to also collect all these fees.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered the vision and the development of Prabon Greenfields. We've covered the management and the operations. I'd like to get a sense before we close out today, from your perspective and kind of from the general state of affairs regarding interest rates and inflation. How is that affecting Ghana, and the type of prospective residents that you guys are looking to sell homes to. How is that impacting your decision making as the management company, and have you guys seen much of an impact on the housing market there as a result of these developments?
Yes, post-COVID, the rates, not just the interest rates, but the exchange rates and the base rate, everything is really high now. The interest rate locally is around 23%. So that affects the cost of the building materials, and then also significantly affects the final cost of the houses and the cost at which we work and all that. So an interesting thing that we are doing, or that we decided to do to mitigate all these challenges, is to introduce the townhouses, whereby families can share, like let's say 3 or 2 families can share the cost of one land within the community. So in that sense, the land cost comes down, and then also we don't spend too much on developing the external infrastructure of like individual houses, because these 3 families or 2 families are going to share the same infrastructure. We don't need to do 3 new outside infrastructure for the 3 families. So we can like mitigate this by working around the townhouses. So that introduction has also changed a lot here, because like this, we can keep the prices relatively low and then offer the same quality and then save some infrastructural cost.
Okay, so you guys you're basically giving some leeway, giving people some opportunities to continue to like you're making your project more available to people under the given economic circumstances. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so another interesting observation as to the importance of infrastructure, I always like give this example to like whatever engagement that I am involved in, for like people to understand like how important the communal infrastructure is for like Africans. If you should visit any African country, one of the things you're going to realize is that all the good communities are always the good communities closer to the main road. So you have like one major road, and then you have some nice buildings and all that. So you have all of the nice buildings closer to the major roads, and the further you leave the roadside and you go deeper into the communities, then you begin to see bad houses with bad roads and like bad lifestyles and all that. So that basic infrastructure or that road changes a lot, changes the level of education, improves the healthcare and all that. So you would really find that the properties closer to the roads are very expensive than those in the inner areas, and that is the intrinsic value of infrastructure to African communities. If you can give all of these communities the same level of road, the same quality of road, life is going to improve dramatically for them.
Absolutely, yeah. To elevate the level of access and to bring down the cost of transportation, of supply, because as you say, with the lack of roads or the lack of access to communities further away from main roads, although I guess in some countries it may be other forms, canals if they're more coastal, for example. But 100%, I think that a lot of our listeners will be listening from cities in North America or from Europe, and a lot of those infrastructural concerns have long been taken care of and are now taken for granted. And so when you're in an environment where those are no longer guaranteed, it becomes highly apparent just how important they are, how fundamental they are. So I applaud you guys for understanding that at an intrinsic level and being able to find the workarounds to provide that infrastructure. And I think it's one of the reasons why projects that can solve for that at the planned community level, but all the way up to industrial parks or city developments and so on. Those are the things that really need to be taken care of in order for it to work.
Yeah. So I think what I would want to add finally is that if you look at a country like Ghana, we have a housing deficit of 2 million units, 2 million houses. And then that is going to solve the country's housing issue. But the problem or the challenge here is that the country can only complete 40,000 units annually. 40,000 units. That is the local capacity to deliver units across the country. And also,
That's the average number of houses that are constructed.
No, completed and
Completed.
ready for the market.
Gotcha.
And also, the population of the country is around 32 million and growing. So there are lots and lots of investment opportunity in the real estate sector that investors can take advantage of and all that. And for myself personally, I believe in the impact investments, whereby you're not only making some returns on your investment, but your investment is having significant impact on the local economy, the local livelihoods, and all that. So usually, I believe that if you want to make any investment locally in, somewhere and all that, Ghana has a very good political system. We are politically stable. There are good laws that are going to protect your investment. You're not going to lose your monies and all that. But we do need these investments. So yeah, so that is it from the investment opportunity side.
Excellent. Well, Kofi, I want to again say thank you for your time and speaking with us today. I think it's been a very interesting conversation, and I've learned a lot about how the real estate development process works in Ghana. So we're looking forward to hearing more about Prabon Greenfields and how you guys grow and develop going forward. And we're really happy to have had the opportunity to discuss this with you today.
Sure, Preston. Thank you too. Thank you so much
All right.
for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks.